Yeah.
Galleries.
I'll sit over here.
Supposed to be now? Oh, sure I do. Somewhere. No, I'm going to be asking about input for the budget. This one? I told us next month. That's
Okay. He hasn't done that later. I'm going to call to order the April 16th, 2024 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District Board to order. We have roll call, quorum. Yes, we have a quorum, and we're called to order. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And before we do that, I'll just say, as a reminder, it's good that when people are talking, if we can let them finish their point instead of stepping on them. I noticed that the last meeting that happened a little more, and so I'll just remind you of that. And then also, if we have some difficult discussions tonight, it's, hopefully nobody takes that personally. Okay, so we're to the approval of agenda. And I'll start. I'd like to move the public hearing information down below unfinished business. And the reason for that is because then it's after the low water level discussion. No. Okay, so that's what I'd like to do. Anybody else? Meredith? Sorry.
I'll be doing the Lake Education Committee report tonight instead of Scott.
Thank you.
I would like to add to the USC agenda discussion over dog park fence.
Add that? New business?
We can put it wherever you'd like. I would just like to add it to the agenda.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, say it again. New fence at dog park?
Yes. And then I can do this during the LUC, but one of the variance application, there's some things to be amended on the current that you have. We can do it now, or I can do it during the LUC.
And is this a change to the variance?
Yes.
Oh, is this the?
East Shore.
Yeah,
East Shore.
I would say just cover that under that LUC item.
Understood.
And then finally, I would like to remove the 2024 Ramsey County Law Enforcement Services supplemental contract from the agenda because Alan hasn't heard back from them on that. So we'll just move that to next month's meeting. Okay, so we have an amended agenda. Any other changes that anybody would like? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the adjusted or amended agenda?
I will move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Next item is approval of last month's board meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to have made to last meeting's agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, minutes. Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Okay, public comments. So at each board meeting, we reserve 15 minutes for comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. Is anybody here that would like to take advantage of that public comment time? Okay, we'll move on to new business. Survey, commercial bay docks. And I guess that's me. Okay, thank you. What I would propose is that we have the survey, once the docks are all in, that we have the survey company come out again this year and just confirm that they're at the appropriate lengths, that they're, in their ADUA, that kind of thing. And I would also, I also think it's appropriate that if a dock owner in Commercial Bay puts out their dock and it's not within what they are permitted, that we ask them to adjust it. And once they adjust it, we have the survey company come back out and confirm that it's adjusted properly, and then we invoice that marine or that dock owner for that second survey.
Is that a motion?
Let me make that into a motion. Thank you. So I'd like to move that we hire the same surveying firm as we had last year, EJ Rudd, and that the first time that we have them come out to confirm dock lengths and position, that the board pays for that. And if any marina owners are found to be out of compliance, that the second time or the third time or however many after that the survey company has to come out, that those bills get paid by the marina owner. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Chris?
What was the cost of the survey the last time we did it? There was some number to it and I forget.
I want to say,
Sorry, I'll say it again. What was the cost for the survey again? Because I thought it wasn't cheap, if I remember right, from what my...
Yeah, was it-
1,000.
Yeah, like the 1,400
Was it just
range?
1,400?
I would have to go back and see because we also had some changes on the ADUA or the surveys.
So it wasn't like 5,000. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was higher.
No, in fact, I think we talked about $1,000 last year to come back out and do this, so it must have been around that.
And have you talked to them lately about the cost to come out and help us?
Oh, yes, I sent that information, but it's between $700 and $1,000. And that is only to do dock lengths and then update surveys. So my question was, do they really need to update the surveys if it's just temporary for this year?
my opinion is that they only need to verify the dock lengths
Right. Although now with the new,
and the ADUA.
yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on that since it's pertaining to Dock Swiper Lake?
Typically I'd say no because the board's discussing right now.
Whenever appropriate, I guess, just before we move on from this.
Okay, well, let's keep discussing board. Anybody have any discussion? Chris?
Just one more. Is there certain areas of concern that we're worried about to have a survey done, or is it just to make sure everything's perfect? Or because I'm thinking about the different areas that we have and laid out. There's one end that's maybe a little tricky with Lions Park, but I think we know that. Is it just trying to get the links figured out, or what are we going to try to do outside the survey that we already have? That because in my head, I think we should be able to measure off all the things that we have already, but maybe not.
Yeah, and it's a good question. And I think that, historically, some of the marina owners haven't always complied with the permits. Okay, so we all know that. And my opinion is that having the survey company come out and verify that the docks are installed, at the proper lengths and in the ADUA, having that work done by a survey company just gives us more confidence. Also gives us a correct number, as opposed to us taking a tape and trying to get the correct distance or try to determine the distance, because the survey company can do it based on distance from the AD or from the ordinary high water level, whereas that's difficult for us.
And I'm sorry, and I should raise my hand.
Yeah,
the final one. Do we think we have? And this is where I don't know because Mike, you and I were out there last. It's trying. It seems like there are some markers there for certain points that people can measure off. But do we feel comfortable that the owners have the proper points there and labeled that they can make sure they're doing the things right based off everything that we have?
I think that there are markers out there, but if a marina owner, is confused or
needs
some help, then we can try to help them with that.
Okay, that's fair.
And Sherry, did you guys end up walking that last year? And could you see, or Meredith, could you see where the points were that ordinary high water level markers?
The first time I walked, I had questions, and they answered them, and I didn't go back to look at that. But again, while we were cleaning up, we did look for them, and it was kind of challenging to see them.
And that's the only concern I have is because I've walked it myself. I haven't been, Mike, you and I found some of them, but there's even weird pipes that are there for over by Tallies and Aqua. It's like, I don't know which one's right. And I know, on the diagram it says there, but it's like, I haven't found a survey pin that shows it. So it's like, do we need the survey company based off the money that we've already paid them to really show us, or we figure out what those are? Because they did it for us. We paid for that, where it's like, do we take one thing with them just so we can make sure we can label some of those survey points that are there?
I'm sorry, Chris, can you say that last part again?
So I like Sherry's saying, she's been out there, I've been out there. It's confusing on the markers. There isn't like a true survey pin like they put out there. There are some weird markers, like, you see these fence posts in some spots. Others have like a stake and a flag. Others have been ripped out and thrown on the ground. What, do since we paid for this already, do we have them make sure that, because I don't even know if they labeled or just marked when they were out there the last time.
They told us what they were, like steel pins. I can't remember if they colored something pink or not. I would have to go back and look, but they did tell us what they did.
Mark?
In the past, I had to, when I moved in 20 years ago to my house, it was an old neighborhood, and I had it surveyed. I can go back now and take a shovel and show you where every pin is, and every pin has the survey and the license number of the surveyor on top of the pin, and I think that's pretty standard. So, and if you're the property owner, you should know where your corner pins are.
Yeah, Mike?
I agree with Mark, because I've talked with some of the marina owners there, and they know their property. They know where that stuff is. But to have a survey is a good way for us to know, to be assured that it's done right. Mm-hmm. So whatever it's worth.
Yeah, if we don't know, we don't know. I'm sorry, I should. I'm trying. if we don't know like what they are, like that's hard for us to even judge off it if we have to go look at it too. I guess that would be my last point for us.
Yeah. Mark?
Regarding the motion, the asserting that the marina owner should pay for the follow-up survey rubs me wrong a bit unless there is some agreement that they would do that if it isn't fixed to the drawing or diagram. I don't think we can assert that they need to pay something we ordered for unless there's some prior agreement.
Well, I think that and I think that's a good point, so let's just talk through that for a moment. In my opinion, when the marina owner submits their application, they're telling us that they're going to do this, that the docks will be this long from the ordinary high water, they'll be within the ADUA. That's them agreeing to do that. I think, for this motion, what I'm thinking about are dock owners that, they just disregard or, they just do something different than is in their approved permit. And we wouldn't probably know that without having the surveyors come out and tell us that, because then we know that we have the good information. And so then it's a question of, well, if a marina owner, puts in their dock and it's not per their application, and the surveyors come out and tell us, no, it's not per their application, and we say, hey, marina owner, you need to make this per your application, and they send us a letter or something and says, okay, now we've done it per the application. Is it our responsibility then to go out and confirm that and pay for that? It doesn't seem like it should be. It seems like the marina owner could have got it right the first time, but they didn't, for whatever reason, do that. Mark?
Yeah, I think it could be addressed so long as it's written. If there are repeated, requirements to hire surveyors to validate, and that continues to be wrong, then the cost of the surveys become the liability of the marina owners. But I don't think, if it's not written, to me, it doesn't feel like perhaps it is written.
I'm just looking at our applications, and it does say, I agree to reimburse the district for any legal, surveying, engineering, inspection, maintenance, or other expenses incurred by the district.
There you go.
And we don't charge them that for the first time. Okay. But I think it is reasonable that if they don't get it right, that we should be able to charge them if we have the survey company come out and do it again. Alan?
Maybe if you are worried about due process, we can just bring that operator in and let them explain what happened. And I would certainly respect the idea that we would bill. And this is new. We've never had a survey.
Alan.
Microphone, Alan. Sorry.
I'm too willing to share, so I don't want to take it back. We haven't had a survey before to go off of, so this will be kind of novel as a way of kind of checking the math or making everyone be accountable for what we've got. And so if they wanted to, say they have a friend who's a surveyor or something like that, let's say it's the city, because they have a surveyor on staff, I think in lieu of charging them to have our person go out and do it, if they wanted to come in with some evidence that they did it, that would be the equivalent. But I think what the chair is going after is, why should we have to do it twice, right? When we've told you where to go, you should know where to go, and you should be the one checking the math, not us, twice. And so I get it, and it's an opportunity to recoup that cost. But I do think it's important to give the person that's sort of offending their permit the chance to prove it up themselves before you send someone out to do it.
And I think that's a great idea.
At least call them in and allow them, the audience, to say, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do, and see if it can't be corrected short of having to charge them $1,000 to go out and check the math again.
Okay.
I got one more.
Chris, yeah.
It's just a point. I feel like it's not a good use of funds, personally. I think if we had things marked and we have tape measures, we should be able to check that, in my head. And I get having a survey and being perfect on it and everything, but We just surveyed it. Now we're going to pay this every year. To me, it's hard for me, and I'm a cheapskate too, so I'll be honest. Like, I don't like to spend money. But it just seems like it's not the proper use of it in my head.
And we have a drone, so
Yep.
we should be able to see where everyone is.
And sorry, what was that point?
I said between having wheels that we can roll out pretty easily, or even borrow the city's surveyor to just go and check distances. We have a drone, and so with those photographs, you can tell really quickly where people are laying relative to other structures. So, to Chris's point, I don't know as we need much in terms of a survey, a resurvey to see where people have gone. When we can probably do that, we're talking a dozen fingers and a couple of images, really.
So it's your point that we would do the survey if someone was found to be out of compliance. We could use a drone to check their adjustment of their docks and confirm that they're within their permit?
Your suggestion was to have the survey crew come out once everyone's in place and check and see. And I think Chris is saying, hey, we've got the ability to measure dock length ourselves, and we know what we've permitted. And all I'm saying is, I have a drone, I'll go out and take pictures, and I expect that most of those folks will be where they're supposed to be. But I mean, it's not very hard to tell. The eyeball test will tell you whether or not they're probably where they shouldn't be. And if you needed to, at that point, go out and confirm it with a survey, that might be the time to make the move to spend the money.
Yeah, and I think it's just, and it goes to the point that Chris raised, I think it's difficult for us to use a wheel to measure from the ordinary high water mark, because I think the ordinary high water mark is, somewhere on shore, somewhere. Chris?
I think the survey should have that mark. It's marked, like that's what I'm saying. Even the surveyor should tell us where that is. He has it on his diagram, right?
Right, and I think they're out. Those points are out there, but I wonder if they're frequent enough to create that line, because that line's doing this as you go around the lake, that ordinary high water level line. Yeah.
Another thought then, kind of a compromise. Does the surveyor, like once things are in, does he come out and mark where the ordinary high water mark is so people can measure off those and find out if they're in compliance or not?
Yeah, and they did that last year, but it's a question of, do we need more?
That's what I'm asking too.
Yep,
I don't know, because I have a general idea where it is. Like even when Mike and I were measuring, we're like, it's about there, right?
Yeah, and the surveyor, by having a survey company come out, then we just know with certainty. Chris.
Just hate paying for it when we already have it. Like that's where I'm like, it's got to. Can they come and do it for free and just mark it where it's at or not? Like if they have some of these areas where they're going to put the docks.
Can who do it for free?
We paid them already to do something, right?
Yep.
They can't come and tell us where that ordinary high water mark. If we said here, even if it's docks or tallies, we know a lot of them are. We know where they're going to be put, right?
The ordinary high water level mark?
Like could they tell us where that is roughly, GPS wise or anything else? Or
sure, the survey company could do that. And what would we do?
But I'm going to have to pay for it again.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. But it gives us confirmation, and we lived a long time as a board without really needing or without utilizing that. But I think there is value in the board knowing that things are as they should be, in regards to the permits that we issue.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And does everybody understand the motion that we would pay for the first survey out once the docks are in, and then if we had to have the survey company come out again, then we would pass that cost on to the marina owner. And it doesn't mean that that's the decision the board will make. I mean, it goes to the point Chris made and the point that Alan made, is that it's possible that survey company comes out once all the docks are in and they tell us, dock A is too long by, 10 feet. We may decide that, we can tell if they bring it in 10 feet and we don't need to have the survey company come out again. And hopefully that's the case, right? Mike?
Are you saying that we have to do a survey? Or only if we suspect that something looks out of line? Because, they're going to line up. You've got city docks at 300, right next to Tallies, which would be 30 feet longer.
Yep.
Right next to White Bear Dock, which would be 20 feet longer. So if things kind of line up and they look right.
Yeah, and I think it's a question of if they look right versus having a surveyor tell us they are right. I guess that's what I'm thinking about. Okay.
I have a question.
Meredith.
So this motion is to definitely survey this year? Allocating funds to survey this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Could we amend it? Could we amend that motion where it's like, I think if we do see a problem, we survey it. I don't know if we necessarily need to pay $1,000 to do it.
Well, and I think the survey company said 700 to 1,000.
I like doing it the first year.
Could we get the cost, like the actual cost of what it would be?
They just had to give a range between 700 and 1,000.
And, one idea is we've only surveyed them once, right? Last year was the first year that we did it. But, one idea, especially now that we're changing configuration on some of the marinas and extending out potentially, to have the survey company come out and do it again. It's not a ton of money, although it is some money. And then maybe next year we decide it's not necessary. Sure.
Excuse me, so the cost of $700 to $1,000 was also to include updating the surveys. So if there's no update of the surveys, it would be less expensive than that.
But that would be updates of like put the new docks and everything in that picture.
But we shouldn't need that. We just want to.
Maybe this is where if it's worth it, it's worth it. If that's the picture, maybe it's worth it to have that, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I don't know that they go through and pick every, little finger or whatever on the docks. I don't think that the survey company would do that. So, I think the picture would just be the outside edges with accuracy. Okay. Anybody want to have?
I'm sorry, I was confused on that one. So we're just going to do the ADUAs, or are we going to do everything and do the dock lengths, all of it?
Well, it would just be what I think we should be concerned about are the dock lengths to make sure they're within the length that was approved by the permit, and then also to make sure that they're within their ADUA. And I think that if we confirm those two things, and hopefully all the marina owners will be in compliance, and we can all say, great, way to go.
Yep.
Diane?
I was just wondering when they come out again if they could mark things better, because I really had trouble and some things are marked different than other things. I would like to see it consistent and something that you can actually see without doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can ask them to do that. And I think that the path forward would be to develop some sort of scope and send that to them and have them give us a hard number, and we can include that. Meredith?
So there was some discussion when we did the initial survey of converting the Ramsey County coordinates to a Google Map coordinate. How did we end up there?
So we can do that. I believe I sent it to everybody. If somebody wanted to tackle how to do it, I mean, there is a way. We haven't figured out what it is.
What did they give us?
They gave us coordinates that were Ramsey County. That's what surveys use, our county coordinates. And so we asked them, how can we convert them to Google? They don't do that.
Oh.
But they said there is a way. I don't know what it is.
Oh, they didn't tell us.
No,
so
no.
We can do it, but we don't know.
Yeah, we could pay them for somebody to do it, I guess, but.
I thought in the end they said that it wasn't that much money and that they could do it, but am I remembering that incorrectly?
I would have to go revisit things. I'm not sure.
Okay. Chris?
Can I suggest one thing?
Yeah.
How about we get with the surveyor and ask him everything that we want so we can get all the data that we need, and then we have it. I'm willing to do that if we can, if we get these questions on coordinates and all the other stuff, and we can always get to the exact point. I think even if let's say it's $1,200 to get everything where everybody can find it, do we do something like that? Because I would be willing to do that. I want to have the data that we can all use, ongoing. But it seems like we should get with the survey and figure out what can we get to clear all this up, and then pay the right money to do it.
Yep. And one idea would be, once the docks are out, that we could ask them to put a pin for the ordinary high water at the end of each dock or something. That costs a little money, but at least then the marina owners would have something to go off of, and they wouldn't have to hire a surveyor to make sure they were correct. Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Here's what I would say, or here's what I'll do is I'll withdraw the motion. And are you interested in withdrawing the second? Okay. And we'll do what you just suggested. We'll get a scope put together for the surveyors. We'll get a hard cost for that. And the scope we can, run around the board by email, and comments can be given to Sherry so that we can get them out there, maybe once the May meeting, after the May meeting, if we approve that cost.
Yep, that would be fair.
Okay. All right. Good. Then we're done with that. And new fence at dog park. Mark, do you want to take that?
Mr. Chair, it's brought to my attention tonight that it's a city dog park. We haven't confirmed who put it out, but it's probably the city. Extended the fence at the dog park into the ordinary high water, which is a no-no for the DNR. It's kind of a no-no for us unless something was approved. So we would like to have a discussion with the city and ask them if it is indeed their fence, and then why did they do it, and that they can't.
Okay, and are you willing to talk with the city about that and then get back to us? All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll ask Sherry to do
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks, Sherry. Any discussion on that item?
I'll just tell you, Mr. Chair, just as a matter of edification for the board, I actually did receive an email from a citizen complaining about it. So we talked about it in LUC. I've passed that email along to Sherry, and so between her and I and the city, we'll figure out what happened.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right. Okay, unfinished business, the VFW EAW update. So I tried to contact Dan Skolin, left a couple of messages. He hasn't gotten back to me. And I think actually Sherry tried to contact him a couple times before that by phone and by email. So we'll just keep trying to do that. I also contacted the woman whose name escapes me at the moment.
Lisa?
Melissa? That provided the comments on the EAW. So I called her and I left a message with her as well. But she hasn't gotten back to me either. But I'll stay on top of that. And the questions that I was going to ask were regarding the EAW and this greenhouse gas emission calculation, and just see what guidance they can give us on that. Okay, Chris?
Do you think we just take a crack at it and say, here's the calculators for number of cars, and we just say, here's what we thought we could do for Marina, and come up with a number and just say, is this good enough, and submit?
I think that might be an option, but when I read through it, it's a little confusing to me what all would encompassed within that calculation.
Yeah, and then when you look at the calculators that are out there today, it's all kinds of stuff, right? It's cars, furniture, material in your home, all that stuff. Right?
Sure, and how far back do you go? Do you know, to the mining of the...
Or it's I don't know if they're going to have something for a marina, type of thing.
Yeah, but I think the benefit of asking them the question is that they've seen marina things like this before. Okay, so I will keep trying to contact them, and if I get any information, I'll pass it to Sherry, and she can disseminate it. Yeah, Chris.
Was there anything else besides that site? Because when I read it, it seemed like there was some cleanup, but the big section was just the greenhouse.
And I think that's the case.
That's what's left.
I think it's I think there are smaller holes, and then there are the big hole. And I
But
think
that big one you would say is from what I saw, it seemed like the greenhouse gas.
and I would agree with you on that.
Okay.
Okay, any questions, discussion on that? Yeah, Meredith?
For the heritage review as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I reach out to see if it was received, or just?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
That'd be good. Okay, low water level study group, Chris?
So we discussed a little bit about this last LUC in meeting. We discussed it more. We sent some emails out to the board for feedback. I didn't get much, but the idea was Mike Prono and I went out. We did some. We tried to map water depth to length of docks, or just as things recede with the water level. Where is the proper starting point if you were to moor a boat? So we took some measurements. It mapped to a lot of things. Like Scott had a suggestion, if your water's at 923.0 or 922.5, like here's how far you could extend your dock. And we were like, that seems right, but we didn't want to get in that. Like, we really want to be prescriptive in this and be able to say, here, for the scenario that you're in, if you have a hardship, we want to try to limit as much length and keep the dock structures and formats as similar as possible to the original one that we approved, especially in Commercial Bay. So our goal was to limit the length out, but still, if there's a hardship or what maps to low water that we feel would be safe to moor a boat, what is that length? And the things we found, especially in the docks of White Bear area, it seemed in these lower spots that were 1.5 to 2.5 feet of clear water, because the muck in there, you can shove the stick down 5 feet if you wanted, right? But we tried to measure what it would be we felt like a safe number, and it did map to a lot of the variances that are submitted. So in Docks of White Bear's case, 50 feet mapped to a point where you did finally get about 2 feet of clear water. So safe to probably float a pontoon there. As we got towards Tallies, obviously the water got deeper. And, for Tallies, they were asking for 30 feet. That mapped to the same depth that Mike and I saw. You started getting 2 feet of clear water at about 30 feet out. So they seemed reasonable, and it seemed to map to that. The thing in my head, and I would want some of your guys' feedback, I couldn't really specify a number that, hey, do we kick this in? But I do think there's a general range. Anytime you're getting into this 922 sea level depth of White Bear, we're having problems, especially last August. And I got to go look at my notes, but I think it was roughly about 922.5 when things in August, people started yanking boats off the lake, right? Off their lifts and some of the other things. And I'll get into the residential stuff later, but so we kind of used that number as a benchmark of, you know what, this is where it gets ugly. We should be watching out for these things. And if people come in for variances, we should be able to look at them. But we want to take them on a variance by variance situation. We just don't want to open it up for everybody and say, hey, this number hits, you can do whatever you want and go out with your links. We still want to approve the variances at an LUC level so we can control that and make sure that's voted on. For residents, we couldn't really come up with a good formula yet, because every dock has a different boat, a different lift, and I think you have to apply the same kind of idea of, hey, we want to get you water depth so you can safely, put your boat on a lift or moor it. And we're probably going to have to go look at those on a case-by-case basis. And as we have a few of them, which I think we're going to have this year, like we had one come in from the East Shore, it's like, one, we want to make sure whatever people are doing, the neighbors are on board with each other, right? Both sides, whether it's, a multi-user dock or even a resident, we really want the neighbors to be on board for some of the stuff so they don't start, 500-foot docks and they're pinching everybody and everybody's fighting. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I think we're going to have a little bit of that this summer for sure. We're going to get these variances of other things coming, I'm sure shortly. But I don't have a real good answer on the residential stuff. But we do want to figure out how we can get them water depth and safely store their boats.
Okay. Any questions for Chris? Okay. Well, and thanks to you and Mike and others for the hard work and going out there and putting this stuff together. Okay, next item on the agenda, Lakeview study. Meredith?
Just one update this month. As part of the Lakeview study, they'll be sending out homeowners and lake user surveys. Mark and I are just beginning to work on revising those surveys. We do think it's important to reuse many of the questions that were used in the past, but some of them no longer are applicable to us. So we're going to revise a few so that we can get more useful data with the few. And we plan to get that out to the entire board. I'm not sure if it's going to be by email or at the next board meeting, but you will all have an opportunity to opine.
Okay. Any questions from Meredith on that? Okay. We'll move on. Tonight we're going to have 2 public hearings.
Do you want to skip the executive committee, or is that sandwich?
Sorry, I moved this to the,
It's right there.
yep, just after unfinished business. Yep, 2 public hearings to take input from the public on variances that have been requested by 2 marinas in Commercial Bay, and that's Tallies and Docks White Bear. So we can't start the meeting until after 7:10. It's after 7:10. So I'm going to open. Alan?
Mr. Chair, first it's appropriate to talk about which one you're going to talk about. If you're following the agenda, it looks like Docks of White Bear is first. Mm-hmm. And so just for everyone that's watching who might not be familiar with what you want to tee this up in terms of what the request is, why it's here, and whatnot, and then open the public hearing to the throngs of people waiting.
Okay, that sounds good. So, and I'll try this, and Mark and Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the variance request by Docks of White Bear Lake is to extend their marina docks out by 50 feet, and it would be a similar configuration to what they're proposed or what we've already approved for their permit. Not all the docks would go out past the ADUA, but several of them would. But it's a 50-foot extension, generally speaking. And is that accurate, Chris?
Yeah, and it's in your packet. It's 1, 2, 3. 3 will go out 50 feet, and then that 4th one will go out about 25 or 30 feet because it kind of cuts through that end. But then the 2 other ones would stay within the ADUA, and they would not cross over the Lions Park one. They didn't want to touch that, just kind of keep that one there. But the way they pinch and point, it actually became probably a pretty good format for this low water, I think.
Okay, so that's the background.
And you might want to let loose what the hardship is.
The hardship that the request is based on is low water level conditions and
was access to navigable water was there.
Yeah, it's low waters that prevents people from mooring their boats, so they lose slips.
Yep, and this says due to low water depth. Yeah.
So with that in mind, there's enough of a formatting to now inform the public hearing.
Okay. So I will open the public hearing for the first public hearing, which is the Docks of White Bear Lake public hearing. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to make comments on this as part of the public hearing?
Provide some more depth.
Oh, yeah, Mike, it's welcome to whoever. What I'd ask is you come up, you give us your name, give us your address, and then you can state your piece.
Mike McGoldrick, 4911 Moorhead Avenue, White Bear Lake. I'm one of the owners of Docks White Bear Lake. So I worked since December reaching out to Chris just because of the dry winter and obviously coming into August with a lot of our boat owners having to pull early, having for us to refund them. It just was already getting to a point where it's too low for the current configuration.
Hey, just a second.
Check your mic real quick. Okay.
It's dramatic.
Go. Are you good?
Yeah, is this
We're just letting Ian check on it for a moment.
Hello, hello? That should do it.
All right, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No, that's all right.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've worked with Chris for the last 4 months on this project. So I will say I think we came up with a better design after a second attempt. We were asked, shouldn't say we were asked, but due to the new ADUA lines on both sides, we had to reconfigure our dock configuration going into this year. And I would say this variance is really my second stab at it, having a little bit more time. I found by making these docks parallel, so we have 6 docks. We're going to keep 3 parallel with the line of Whitaker that was designated to us where we share our boundary with Tallies. 3 of those docks are going to be parallel. And by doing this, if you look at our original configuration, they were all at different angles as we kind of curved around the lake. And what that caused was a tight, at the very tips of the dock, it was about 36 feet. By keeping the docks parallel, we were able to guarantee 40 feet between any ends of 2 fingers. So this way gave a safer way for our boaters by doing it this way. So I think it should work out better. I don't believe that we are definitely extending past on 4 of the docks. I don't think we're extending past 50 feet, though, because we're at an angle. The docks will be 350 feet long, but we're not necessarily going 50 feet past our 350 feet from the ordinary high water mark, if that makes sense. Because they're at an angle, they're kind of cutting across our ADUA. So, again, I tried my best. I worked at this for a very long time to try to make sure that we had a safe amount of space for our boaters to be able to still navigate. At the same time providing enough water for all of our patrons. So Chris, backed it up with the data by going out there and measuring it as well. So again, just hoping we can get this approved, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Right, and we may, once the board starts discussing it after the public hearing is closed, we may ask you to come up and answer
Absolutely.
questions.
I just wanted to provide a little bit more background because where my head was at and why we chose that configuration. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Would anybody else like to offer input or comments during this Docks of White Bear Lake public hearing? Okay, I'll ask once more. Anybody would like to offer comments? And then a third time, anybody like to offer comments? Okay, I'm going to close the Docks of White Bear Lake public hearing. And I think I would like to take care of both of these public hearings, and then we can have some discussion about them. Are you okay with that?
It's a little, like I said, last time when you asked, it's a little better for the record to keep it a continuous conversation, one subject and then the next subject.
Okay.
So, for what that's worth. Talk about it, take a vote, move to the next one.
Okay. All right, so let's have some discussion on the variance request. Well, I can get it. Oh, yeah, Chris?
I think the thing that I liked about it, it tried to adhere to the same format of the docks that we originally approved, keeping them within the ADUA, not going over Lions Park. But then it surprised me when we actually went and measured the water. Like when Mike and I did it, it measured to something that made sense, like for those areas that, where would it start at that safe water mark? And I was surprised by that. I was thinking it was going to be either less or more. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think it was going to match up that well. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, any other discussion? Mark?
Yeah. I appreciate the hardship was well defined by those measurements and a clear criteria of the 2 feet of clear water. So that makes this variance easier to interpret what the hardship is and what we're voting on. So I appreciate that from the people who took those measurements.
Meredith?
I would echo Mark's comments. Thank you both for doing those measurements for us. My concern with it is on paper, when you look at the diagram, it looks like a huge expansion of slips because all the fingers stayed in there. I'm just saying, I know that it's not an expansion of slips, but that's what it appears to be.
Yeah,
Chris?
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, and there, what we didn't number them. There is no additional slips, so they're all numbered, and we made sure that that was like, we're 250 was 250. Like, there's no additional.
Okay. Okay, I have a few things. One is that by granting this variance, we'll do a couple of things. One is that the DNR permit, my understanding of the DNR permit is that if the water level is less than 922 in April, then the DNR permit allows them to go to an alternative configuration. And the board's always taken the position that we can be more restrictive than the DNR, but not less restrictive. And so it's not less than 922, at least at the moment, and it's probably not going to be less than 922 in April. So I wonder about the precedent that sets and how that impacts our work with the DNR, because that's one thing. A second thing I'm thinking about as far as precedents is that, it seems like our council, but I would take correction on this if I misspeak, it often advises us not to act on variances preemptively. Like, this could be a problem down the road, so let's give a variance now. That's my understanding. And if I don't have that right, I would like to, obviously speak up, Alan. And then the third thing I'll say is that it seems like what we're doing is we would be making a decision that would be good for docks of White Bear Lake, but not necessarily have any real benefit to the city, to the VFW. And so it seems like we're picking winners and losers a little bit in this situation, which I know the board in the past has tried not to do. So those are some concerns that I have with it. Yeah. Any further discussion? Chris.
I had some similar concerns, at least with the city and the VFW, but I did reach out to them too, because this did apply to them, and I asked them, be proactive. Do you think you're going to need it? And they both said they couldn't do that until they got their docks in. So however they want to decide on that I did say, if it comes and you have to do something later, we're trying to come up with some way that you guys could come up with a variance if you find that. So they've both been notified of that. And then for the DNR aspect, what I'm hoping, again, us as a board, we could define two types of formats for some of these owners, like they have today in their permit. But these would be the new formats. So we have a low water mark and a high water mark. What that number is for the low water mark, I think we have to decide, because I can tell you 922 is not the right number. So if you go out there and you measure it and you look at the depths, you look at even other people on the lake, this year is going to be really bad with the depth of water for a lot of people on the lake. So I don't believe the number that we've chosen in the past is accurate to every spot on the lake, where I think you have to look at these areas and we have to rethink what that number is and get these types of diagrams as options for the low and high. Because the last thing we need is 922, and we have in the other one, it's like a giant T that caused a lot of heartaches, when they had that other option, which is like 500 feet of dock or whatever it is. It goes out pretty far. So it's like, I think what I'm trying to also try to get to is, how do we have a very simple A and B type options between low and high water? But I do think 922 is not the right depth, because right now we're at 922.2, I think we looked today, and it's a mess, right?
Yeah, Mark? Did you have
I also was thinking, and I can't, for whatever reason, the word doesn't come to me, but I can remember stats. And anytime you take a measurement, there's always a plus or minus variable to it. Like, it's not going to be exactly this, but it's plus or minus 0.2 of an inch. It's 922, but plus or minus, you know. Do we know what that is?
You mean the margin of error?
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Well, I think that, and just to respond to Mark, then we'll get to you, Chris. I think the DNR permit says 922.
What's the margin of error of the measurement device?
Oh, well, I think the device that is measuring is the one that they have over on the bridge going out to the island.
I think it's accurate. The
Okay.
suckers.
Just asking.
Yeah. Chris?
But I think what made me think it's not the right number, like if you looked back, if you go look at those numbers of depth back in August when things were ugly, towards the end of August, it was 922.5, and it was, or 922.5, or really I was saying a half. And Mike, I always get this screwed up. It's 922.6 or 5, but it was really 922.5 in August of last year, where we've already dropped a half foot below that almost, right? Where it's like, that half foot, 6 inches of water, that is a lot, especially when we're having so many problems that people are yanking all their boats out in August. So it's like, and that's where I'm like, I get what the DNR had, and I know the DNR triggers a lot of things off the 922 to stop wells and stop pumping and do whatever they need to do. But I do think we got to measure and look at it in a logical way, because there is not depth there that's safe enough to moor a boat, right?
And just a minute, Mike. And I'll just raise the point that, on August 26th last year, there were, and I'm just looking at Docks White Bear Lake, they're based on the drone photo, there are boats all the way up towards the shore. On August 26th, they still had 247 boats. And so I wonder how many boats were actually yanked out by August 26th, at least from this.
And I wasn't saying commercial bay. I was just saying from what I knew on the lake from like neighbors and the rest. What I guess I was saying, that is where things start to be a problem, right? Now, you can shove a boat in 2 inches of water if you really want to, right? But is that safe? Probably not.
Yeah. And Mike, you come on up and.
Yeah, I think it's relative. So you made a mention about our DNR permit and your relationship with the DNR. So currently, above 922 feet, our DNR permit allows for us to be at 350 feet. The board limited us to 300 feet. So we would still be within our rights with our DNR permit with this variance.
Just a quick question on that. Did your DNR permit expire?
I don't believe so.
I know it's up for renewal, but I wonder about that. Because I know it's up for renewal, right? And they haven't issued anything yet. But okay, so question for you, Mike. Would it be an option for you to just not rent those slips closer to shore?
What do you mean by that? I mean,
well, instead of extending out, would it be an option for you if it's just low at the shore or problematic at the shore or out a little bit? Would it be an option for you to just not rent those slips in low water conditions?
That'd be a huge hardship for our business, because every slip is the money that we need to pay our bills.
So it's not an option?
No. If we want to be a profitable business, I would say no. This is that's our entire business, is renting slips.
Okay. And the second thing is, are you okay? It seems like, and let's say you do have a DNR permit in effect that says 922, and so are you okay? It seems like a violation of your DNR permit to put in docks outside of the ADUA, at least in regards to your DNR permit, if we were to grant this.
If you grant that, we're within our DNR permit. At 922, it grants us to, and I can send a copy of our DNR permit, but off memory, it's at 500 feet. It's something absurd. But above 922, just what's granted on the first line of that DNR permit, we are to operate to 350 feet. Once it hits 922, we can extend past 350 feet. So as of now, the variance that you would approve tonight would be within all the rights that's on our DNR permit. It would not be violating in any way our DNR permit.
Yeah, and my understanding of the DNR permit, and I don't want to be argumentative about it, but is that in April of any year, if the elevation is below 922, then the other dock configuration would come into effect or would be allowed. But I wonder if we're going to get below 922 in April.
It doesn't, it says if it goes under 922, we can go out even further. It doesn't talk about configuration so much as it speaks to the length from the OHW.
Yeah, but I think that 922 is in April.
Sure, but I think what I'm saying is that it's a moot point because your variance, if you approve this one, we're still within the right of the original DNR permit of above 922. I would not be violating anything, even if you granted this permit tonight and it was at 924, we're still within the right of our regular DNR permit is 350 feet. The board has limited us to 300 feet.
Sure.
So,
understood.
Chair, just for edification, just like Tallies, when we told them this is our limit, I believe even their regular condition permit takes them out to like 320, 3.25.
Got it.
Under regular conditions,
Yep.
922 up. And if it's below, even Tallies gets to go out. I don't remember what the number is, but it's quite a bit farther than 50 or 100 feet.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we're working to get cleaned up with the DNR on the reissuance of permits. Mark?
I just have one thing to say. I know in the past there has been some problems with people saying either the city or we're picking and choosing. I don't think this is that case. I think they asked for a variance. I think the other two didn't. Now, if you gave them the variance and Tallies a variance and then told the city no, then you're picking and choosing.
I think that's reasonable. Chris, did you have anything to say?
No, I know we get in this circular argument on DNR permits, right? And we know we still have to clean these up, right? Even with some of the formats we've had, because some of them aren't there yet. Where I look at it, we have to remember we're the authority on the lake too. So if we can get these defined and then tell the DNR what we want from the LUC and the conservation district's perspective, I think we really want to get to that point. Because we tend to get in these arguments where, we get there and then we try to use data that probably doesn't really mash up anymore with everything that we've worked on to get to the permits that are approved today. And then if we want to have a high and low, we really have to get that defined so we can get rid of some of this verbiage in the DNR permit and get it to a point of DNR, this is what the White Bear Conservation District approved, and quit fighting on that number of what they have there, because we tend to go in circles on that. And then the other point of getting rid of some of these docks, we're also some of our bylaws, or I think it's bylaws, we want people to enjoy the lake. That's part of our job, right? Where we want to make sure we can get people who can enjoy it, so to take slips away because of low water, I'm not on board on that for sure.
And I would suggest that it would be 20 or 30 boats off of
It's
that
still,
wouldn't have
it's
access.
20 neighbors that are impacted, right?
Yeah.
So my major concern with this is that there's going to be accidental slip expansion here. Are you able to monitor these spots that look like slips but shouldn't have any boats parking overnight? What will you do to monitor to make sure that there's not extra boats there parked overnight for time?
Yeah, there isn't a physical place for us to put another boat in a slip. Because of this new ADUA, I mean, I made sure I maximize the amount of space in between the docks, but there isn't an open slip anywhere. And I believe they're all numbered, but the only part that we would have is a dock. Are you all looking at the diagram in front of you? Perfect. So I believe they're numbered. So there is no empty slip there someone could tie up to. There's exactly 250.
So the slip's right along shore?
Or are you going like sideways?
Yeah, I think that's
Is that what you meant?
The ones that are too shallow.
I mean, I would, yeah, if I ever, and that's something you all could easily take a look at with a drone as well. There should be no docks that are tied up parallel. There's no spot on there. Even the ones that are on the end, they aren't tying up parallel. They'll be tying up perpendicular to the main dock going out, and they'll be parallel with the finger. All docks will be tying up to one of those fingers. So we don't have any empty slips. So if you see any dock that's tied up, or Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
But I think Meredith's concern is this, and I agree with her. There's some straight parts on there. You got to make sure if they're, and here's the other thing that prevents it from happening. If there are boats that are tied up there and they get the numbers counted when we count them, they get them docked next year. So that's what our ordinance, our ordinance says that if we find there's more boat slips, we have every right to cut them down. So that's kind of the other part of this to control it.
I think one easy way, and it's not a surefire way, is just make sure there's no cleats there.
Yeah.
If they can't tie up, then they won't be there.
Yeah, and just so I'm on the same page, is the concern...
Take Lions Park. You got a straight shot there, even though the ADOA lines are.
He's at the beginning of your
water
dock.
there. People could go dock on that.
Sure, and I think, yeah, because they'd be tied up parallel. There's no...
Worried about tie-offs a lot.
Yeah. We would monitor that, obviously. I don't want anyone, we're here to make money. I'm not selling slips, obviously, that are tied. That's very, very easy to see. So I think it's going to really stick out like a sore thumb just because they're all at the beginning of our docks, and they won't be tied up to a finger. They're going to be tied up parallel. And, yeah, I think that's a good point, Chris. We're happy to remove cleats, too. So that
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
If there were no cleats there, it would be a good faith effort.
Yeah, we're happy to remove any old cleats that may have still been on the docks.
Mike.
Just, you mentioned boats and you mentioned the dock storage, you mentioned all that, and one thing that just so everybody knows, the dock, we're allowing the dock to go out to 350 feet, but there's still a boat at the end of the dock that goes out farther. Every slip is accounted for, plus the extras on the ends of the dock. So the intrusion into the lake is more than 350, just so you guys know you're not, limiting to that. So when things get measured or surveyed and all of that, it's going to be 350-foot dock, but there's going to be a pontoon, which is 8 or 9 feet wide on the end of that, or a speedboat or something, in addition to the 350.
Mike, is it your intention to physically number the slips this year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I actually just ordered them today. New plates with 250. And I think that would only be the case for Dock 5 and Dock 6. The others are at a parallel. So if you look at Dock 2, for example, you can see on the survey where the OHW at 300 is. And that one's not going out 50 feet. That's probably going out 25. But again, yeah, that's just the way we would have to do it to get all 250 and is have boats on at the end.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion on this variance request?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for docks of White Bear for
Thanks.
the boating season of 2024.
Second.
Second, I'll ask again, any discussion? Okay, I will call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. I'll vote opposed. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And if I may, before I leave, just going back to the survey, I just would like to be proactive by saying we're having a hard time finding the new ADUA line that was just drawn up with the city. We were told that a marker was going to be placed in the lake, so we're going to start putting our docks out as early as next week. And I don't have any ill intent, and I would rather not pay for an additional survey if we're off a little bit, but we don't have a good way to go off. We know where it is on the land. It's on the edge of our patio, but the degree in which it goes into the lake, we don't really have a point. I gave a copy of the survey to the man that installs our docks, but even he was having a hard time understanding exactly where that is. So if anyone or your survey team, if anyone could help us with that, we want to do it right the first time. I would really not want to have to pay a fee for trying our best and getting it a little off. So thank you very much for the variance.
Okay, so we're good with that. We will go to the second public hearing, and this is for Tally's Dockside, And this again is variance requested to accommodate low water depths. This extension will provide deeper water for mooring boats closer to shore. Good enough?
If you want to ask something from LUC and open the public hearing.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's basically it. In their diagram, all the format of the docks stay the same. It's just the gangplank basically pushes everything straight out 30 feet.
Yeah, and that's good. So it would be an extension of 30 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, that's background, and I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody in the audience like to does anybody have anything to say during this public hearing? Okay, anybody and anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and let's do it this way this time. Would anybody like to make a motion on this variance?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Tally's variance of 30 feet to their dock for the boating season of 2024.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? And I won't bother going over my points from the last one, but I still have them. Anybody else have anything? Meredith?
So my concern with this one is the same as the last one. I thought that we had approved 64 slips for Tallies, 58 slips on 6 on skids. And this diagram doesn't reflect that, and I have questions about that.
Chris?
And I caught that too, and we should get back with Keith because I think we took out C1. It was, there was 2 slips we took out in the approved permit.
Yeah.
So I think it should be, I could make it a motion, I could redo the motion and say, I make a motion to approve the extension of the approved original permit, I guess. Because there was 2 slips that I remember in our last permit that we took out on the original diagram. So I think this was just a cut and paste error of the original, like the thing that was submitted before we took out the 2. There should be 2 off this for sure. And I think it was like the C1, which was their boat, and then we were taking one of the P slips off, P1 or something like that.
Do you want to make your motion contingent on them meeting
the original approved permit
layout?
Yeah, that would work.
Does the second agree with that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Meredith.
So I think it's 3 votes that they need to, that was the error between what we approved and what this looks like, because they've got 59. No, they have 69 on there right now? No, 67 on there.
I know we took them off and came up with the I think whatever was, we went through this number with Keith's son who was here, and we didn't expand on the numbers that we had. So if it goes back to what we said, amend like to the original approved boat slips that we had, I would be fine with that. We can figure out what that number is and just make it contingent on that.
Yeah, I want to make sure the motion is 58 slips, 6 skids, what we had approved. I don't want to expand here.
And would you, just to clarify, Chris, would you want to amend your motion to be just what Meredith said?
Sure.
58 boats, 6 skids?
Yep.
And is the second okay with that?
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah. So I've been dealing with this for 15 years, and it's always kind of I don't know if they do it on purpose or not, and I've asked. None of this T1, T2, P5, C3, G3, just do what the other dock next to you is doing and number them 1 through 64.
Yep.
And if you want to keep this for yourself, for your own good, as tallies, to say this is how we allocate these slips. This is how we allocate. I'm fine with that, but I think it would be a lot easier if they would just say 1 through 64.
I would agree. We can work on that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay. And Sherry, would you mind just reading back the motion?
Put it together here. A motion the motion is to approve Tally's variance of adding 30 feet to their dock, contingent on using their original layout with 58 slips and 6 skids.
Okay, so again, I'll ask, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the Executive Committee report, and that's me. So the Executive Committee met April 4th. Sherry talked to us about some workers' compensation coverage items, and then we also discussed the Manitou Days event, summer cleanup. We talked a little bit about the low water levels potential for 2024, and the commercial bay permits, communicating with the DNR on the dock configuration and slip counts, which was the Dan Skolin business. And then we talked about physical permit status that we send out to the marina owners, and the confirmation of the dock locations. We also discussed algae testing, which is something that, at least I recall, Steve McComas suggesting that we might do additional algae testing to try to get a better idea of quantity and types of algae that we have in our lake, so that we have that as a background, and so we can monitor against it in the future. It talked about a low water level press release, which Sherry has prepared and sent out, the lake use study, ordinance review work, and then the St. Germain Bay sign. And I'll report on that the city of Delwood has agreed to on a location for that sign. And so we're pushing ahead. That the cost of that sign has been approved at a previous meeting. And so that's moving forward. And then one other thing that we talked about was businesses operating on White Bear Lake. And our understanding is that the city is unlikely to issue permits for businesses to transact on their property. And so because of that, there shouldn't be a need for the board to issue any permits for people operating on the lake. And that's it. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Oh, Mark?
And there have been no requests for business permits on the lake?
That's what I think. Is that true? Yep, that's correct. Darren?
I didn't understand that. The White Bear Lake Conservation District, there is no need for us to worry about businesses operating on the lake?
Right.
I understand that?
Yeah, because the business transaction would originate on land, and the city would have to issue a permit for that to happen, and they are not going to do that. And, and so if somebody comes to us with a request, we can ask them, can you give us the permit that you received from the city? And they will say, no, I don't have one, and then we won't have to bother issuing a permit. Because I think that's a reasonable position for the board to take.
All right. So no worries about jet ski rentals and...
But with that said, I mean, if we get complaints about that, then we'll have to investigate those.
Okay.
Yeah, with the city. So if anybody hears of anything, or if you see something, obviously bring it forward to Sherry, and she can coordinate with the city on it. Mark?
And is it just the city or the county? Because it would happen at the county park.
It's Ramsey County as well.
Okay.
They do not issue commercial permits for their public space.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. We'll move on. Lake Quality Committee, Mike?
Lake quality, the lake level tonight is 922.20. 922.20. So it stayed above 922 for a long time. Lake temperature is 48 degrees. Last year, the lake temperature was 42 degrees, and there was still ice on the lake. In your package of information, there's a Eurasian Water Milfoil Survey bid from Steve McComas. If you have any questions on that, it is $100 more than last year. The way things have been going up, that's a minimal increase, but I would like to, if there's any questions on the bid, no? Okay. I would like to get that approved tonight so we can move forward. Then I'll work with the applicator for next month. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the Eurasian Water Milfoil Survey bid from Blue Water Science in the amount of $3,850, $3,750 coming out of account number 6036, and the extra $100 coming from the general fund.
Second.
Is there a second?
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. And thanks for getting that together, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Okay, on to Lake Utilization Committee. Mark?
Chair and Board, we have two on the agenda. The first one is Shadowgate Condominium multi-user dock. It went through the AUA. It was voted for unanimously. There were no questions asked, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the Shadowgate Condo Association. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
The second one, I'll give you a background on. This is East Shore Dock. I'm a member, so I will be abstaining. Having said that, there was also no quorum at the LUC meeting. But it was approved by 3 votes, and I would like to make an amendment to the variance. The first one is, I can get this to you, Sherry. For number 4, add, it says 20 feet. That was moved to 12 feet. And then, period, scratch everything else.
So the 20, add a 20-foot extension. That should be a 12-foot extension.
It's a 12-foot extension.
And to the dock for low water.
And then everything else scratch.
Okay.
Just that, period.
In that
12
first
feet.
sentence or in that paragraph?
Yep, 12 feet extension, period, done. All right. The next one was brought up by Mr. Mashat that it should be a little more specific besides just saying low water. So I'd like to amend that to say low water, non-navigable water at the shore. And that's it. Oh, you want to make the motion?
I'll make I'm sorry, making a motion to approve East Shore Dock Association variance for 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And just to be clear, the LUC at that point that they acted on this had 4 members present. Mark, they need 4 for a quorum. Mark abstained, so they didn't have a quorum, but all 3 of the members that could vote voted in favor. Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Mark.
First, I don't understand why this is a variance. So this still seems to be within the ADUA. It seems like this is a change to the permit, not a variance to our ordinance.
It's not a variance to the ordinance, but I think this was the way we were asked to take care of it. And the reason is we can't use all 200 feet. Any dock that has to be licensed is decided by this board. And we were only licensed for 150 feet. And so we can't extend it without some sort of formal, we can't just go adding in 12 feet and saying, well, we're below 200. So that's why we use this form. It's a variance to our dock diagram.
And that way we can do this formal process of getting the neighbors informed. Everybody gets to understand what changes are happening. It's just not a surprise to them either.
Okay.
Alan.
I won't get into a long discussion over the appropriateness of variances versus conditional use permits, but remember that all of these start as conditional use permits, and so it gets a little wonky when you start doing amended conditional use permits, if that makes sense. And so in a multi-user dock like this is just the format that we've used when they have to diverge. So it's a variance from even their conditional use permit. So if at some point we can actually get into just regular permits, right, instead of doing it this way, which means we review these things every year because they're every year CUPs, it just makes it a little more difficult when you start to introduce, like I said, a variance as a tool, right?
It is a tool that you think is appropriate in this
In this context, yes, because again, we're starting out with not a permitted amount, but it's a conditional use permit in the first place, because that's just blanket what the board issues every year for everybody that has to approach the board for a permit. They're all conditional.
Meredith?
So the board has received some feedback, a couple emails that were in our packet. Were those addressed by the Dock Association?
I'll let you answer after me.
Yeah.
I was told by the president that, and it was done, one was done today, but the others were done weeks ago. One of the neighbors wasn't getting back, but I was told that there was discussion today and they were okay.
And then on the two that we got feedback, one came back, I personally just talked to her about her concerns, and once she understood the details of the 12 feet, she was more comfortable, so it took some communication to get around that one. And then the other, I think she laid out, she understands if this is just for this year, she's fine with it. I think the big concern from the neighbors is it just doesn't, it's just for this year.
Mark?
Unlike the prior variances we talked about tonight, this one doesn't seem to establish the hardship with a lot of detail. For example, at this many feet from the shore, you still can't moor a boat because it's only X feet deep. And so I think that's lacking in this application.
Understood. I can tell you, you can walk 40 feet out and you won't be to your knees. The wheels of the dock will stick out in the water. And so next, if we have to do this again next year, I'll make that clear that we have to know exactly how far we out is there a standard every 5 feet, every 10 feet? I can just tell you that even with that 12 feet, I doubt we'll have 8 boats out there.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Any questions for Mark? All right, thank you, Mark. Lake Education Committee, Meredith.
Okay, so really great news. We've been approved for the Summer Lake Cleanup event as part of the Manitou Days. Thank you to Sherry for submitting the application for us. It's going to be June 15th. So mark your calendars if you think you can participate with the board. And then the second item on there is we are working on the May edition of the Laker. As part of the May edition, the press has asked us to profile some board members. We're still waiting to see what the press exactly wants from the board members. So I'll be Sherry or I'll be reaching out to some of you with some questions that the press wants answered from a board member, and I think it's going to be a quick turnaround, so I'll apologize in advance that we're going to reach out and we're going to ask for a response rather quickly. As part of our social media this month, I'm going to put up something for Earth Day, telling people how they could help lake quality, highlighting again our Adopt a Drain program, because we haven't highlighted that in a long time. And I didn't get the buoy map up last month, so that will go up this month, and I'm happy to put anything up that anyone would like. Does anyone have any questions?
What was the date on buoys? Are they going? Or are they out?
They're in,
right? Got it. Perfect.
Okay, any questions for Meredith? All right, thank you, Meredith. Treasurer's report, Mike?
You have the treasurer's report in front of you. I'm sure you've all had time to study it over.
No, I was just going, your mic makes, because,
Do that. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report for April 16th,
Second.
using, to approve debit card purchases 2024-7 through debit card purchases 2024-9, and checks 3171 through, no, 3171 on its own, which was an old on-cash check, which we've rectified, and also checks 4939 through 4943.
Second.
Is there a second? There's a second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Process, which is beginning now, and I think started to work on some numbers. If there's any board member that thinks that there's another project we should be working on, that they probably would have to take charge of, let me know if it would need a budget. I'll be contacting the chairman of all the committees to see what their budget needs might be. And we'll have a proposed budget, the beginning of a proposed budget for the May meeting. And so let me know if there's anything you need, or if you have any questions on any of the budget items. I always wondered, why is this or that, or any of the accounts, or again, if you have an idea of something you think we should be doing that the board would approve and you'd be willing to be in charge of, let me know.
And just as a reminder, we will review the draft budget in May, and we will vote on the budget in June. Any questions for Mike? Mark?
A concept or an idea for the board to consider. I recall that last summer we were limited in our ability to prosecute or enforce some of our ordinances by a feeling of how much cash we had to do that enforcement. And so an idea to consider as we're building the budget would be to hold a larger amount in reserve so that we would feel more able to make enforcement actions if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. Not tickets and that enforcement, but our enforcement.
Yeah. When we have to prosecute our ordinances, the legal cost can be extensive, as we talked about last summer.
Okay.
And should we hold a larger reserve? Should we ever need to do that?
Okay, our reserve policy is that we are within suggested 150 to 200% of our annual budget. So we're just under that right now. We're between. So you're saying that we should
That'd be the
have
consideration.
a balanced budget
to discuss. Yeah.
Increase that.
Well, if we raise our budget, then that reserve goes up, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
That'll take care of it. Yep.
And another, I think it's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. I think another option would be just to have a line item. Well, is it an option just to have a line item for legal?
Contingency?
Yeah. But making sure that that's adequate to do what we need it to do, I guess. Okay, so that's good. So we'll discuss that in May when we discuss the budget. Meredith?
I'll just throw another big idea out there. We're way overdue for a lake management plan. Having two big studies a couple years in a row is maybe too much for us, but I want to keep it on our radar that we are overdue for that, and that it should be in the budget in a year soon.
So,
in my opinion.
So maybe that would be a discussion in May, June 2025 for the 2026 budget, something like that? Or is that?
Yeah, or perhaps even budgeting a portion of it, because it's an expensive thing over a couple of years. I'm not sure if that's the right way to go, but.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I'll note that the last one was 24 years ago, and might be good to do one every 25 years.
Or more frequent. Okay, any further discussion on that budgeting item? Okay, and any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Next item, Board Council Report. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too would agree that, especially since you're having a lake use study, it makes a great tool to inform a lake management plan right after, because you got fresh data about the lake. So that'd make a good hand in glove sort of project to follow up with. As far as legal activity, it's still early in the season, of course. Nothing happened from the DNR perspective. Did reach out to our Water Patrol sergeant, and either the contract's not ready or the contract's not ready. So that's why we struck it from the agenda. So hopefully that'll be before you next month for this summer's extra patrol from Sheriff.
Okay. Any questions for Alan?
Good? Good.
Okay, thank you. Announcements? I don't have any announcements. Sherry?
I just want to say that the board will receive digital copies of the approved annual activity calendar and the new board contact list that I've updated. You have hard copies in front of you, so just want to let you know that. And our next board meeting will be held on May 21st.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're down to the end. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for all the hard work tonight.